Good evening, everybody. It's me, Comic Crack. It's Friday night. Doing this tonight. There's going to be no Sunday chat Sunday afternoon this week. Not sure what's happening next weekend with it being Mother's Day, so we're definitely on a hiatus for 1 week, possibly two. I did read a stack of comics though. I won't be doing a Sunday wrap, so I figured I'd do something tonight. I was in the mood, so why don't we have a little beverage and chat some books that I read this week. I've been posting. There's a 31 days of comics hashtag from For the Love of Comics. He got it from the Good Not Bad website. Spilt a little bit there. So I've been doing that. Cheers. So has Chaos and Comics. I've uploaded about, 2 weeks worth, and they're kind of scheduled to come out every day, 8 a.m. So they're kind of fun to do. It's also kind of fun to try to be real concise, keeping it down to like a minute's length to talk about each of these categories. There's some really tough categories, and I sort of half-assed a number of them, but tried my best. It's kind of fun. We've talked about it before. This idea of like kind of community hashtags and things is always kind of entertaining. So why don't we just get into the books? We'll start off easy. These first few mixed kind of feelings about. It's pretty rare that there's a book that I'm not crazy about. I would say that this is one of them. So this is the original Astro Boy from Now Comics, issue number 1. This one ran for 20 issues, 1987 here. Give you the credits here. Story by Mike Dempsey, art by Ken Steacy, and then colors and letters, etc. So looking on Comic Vine for Ken Steacy, it's a name that I'm familiar with from like Alien Worlds. There was a couple of other things. I think he had some appearances in Heavy Metal. He did a couple of Johnny Quest comics that I have. He did a lot of kind of like Robotech and Ultraman and these kind of things like adaptations. It looks like he did a number of that. I wasn't crazy about this book, to be honest. I'm not going to pick up any more. It will stick around though, because I feel like it's a number 1. Potentially there's maybe some trade value in it with some locals, see if people are into it. I found there was a note from Tony Caputo, the publisher of Now Comics. And he's just talking about the series, how it's not an adaptation of the cartoon because he just found that would be really difficult. Hello, Miss So, welcome. He thought that would be just way too difficult to put into a comic book form. So they did original stories for this, but his closing paragraph: the majority of this book's buyers may have a vague memory of a little robot with 2 points on his head who can fly. The Now Comics Astro Boy is much more than that. Pick up the original Astro Boy number 1 and read it. It's a great comic. I know you'll enjoy it. I know I did, and I'm not a fan. Tony Caputo, publisher, Now Comics. Holy shit, look at this guy. Werewolf by Lunchtime. How are you? Nice to see you. It's been a while. So I just thought that was a strange thing to include in your little editorial right up there on the inside of issue number 1. Could have left that last sentence out, but it kind of like I get having to kind of compress some storytelling. They didn't maybe know how many issues it was going to go. They wanted to see if they could probably draw just on the name and get fans in. But it was really kind of a disjointed story. The dynamics between Astro and his father/inventor were really strange. There wasn't much build up to things. Yeah, I mean, it was a quick, light read, but nothing that special. And I don't think I'll be going any further with that one, even if I do see them in the dollar bins. This next one was kind of a head scratcher. Yeah, strange time because we're not doing a Sunday chat, and I was in the mood to talk. I'm not going to be doing a Sunday wrap stream as well that night, but I did want to talk about some of the books that I've read. So I figured switch it up a little bit, a Friday night. So the next one here is Rad Rex, issue number 2. This was such a bizarre comic. I feel like I don't quite know what the tone is. It feels kind of like black humor, but it also feels kind of goofy. It feels a little, I don't know, man. There's so many strange things going on in here. There was a real mix of art styles as well, too. So this is 1990. Let's see if we can get a credits page here. There we go. Story and art by Greg Boone. Cover by Mark Beecham. Produced and edited by the Bullet Brothers. So there's some real strange stuff. So it looks like there's this gang of kids breaking into this building to fight this dude for some reason, which isn't really made clear. I'm sure it's all crystal clear if you read issue number 1. But when they see him, he's squashed this other child. So this first chunk of it is this dude beating the shit out of these kids and slamming them into walls, and it's just really bizarre because it's done so brutally. And I feel like they try to inject a bit of humor, but it just doesn't. Then there's these little devils that kind of jump. I think he creates them and then they jump at them. So there's this one strange panel down here where the perspective, it's one of those devils jumping off the guy towards that little girl, but it's extremely just bizarre and phallic. Like I just don't understand this book. I don't know if I enjoyed it. I don't know if I hated it. Again, the chances that you take, but then there will be some really sharp illustrations mixed in as well. Just trying to find, like, she's drawn very well. It's a pretty great looking face there. So a very bizarre black and white comic from 1990. Yeah, and there's this other story with this performer. She's going to sing a song to people live, and it's going to put them in a trance and things. Very, very strange. So she kind of bucks the system. She puts on a different outfit and decides to sing one of her own songs, much to the chagrin of the evil overlord. And you get the treat of having the lyrics there. You can pause the video if you want to see these incredible lyrics. I another one. I'm just not sure. I would probably try the first one if I saw it, just out of sheer curiosity to see where this starts. I don't know if there was any other issues beyond this. I didn't look online. There is an ad for issue number 3 in the back, coming in 2 weeks apparently. Excuse me. Bullet Comics Incorporated is not a company I'm familiar with. I didn't even look them up on my comic shop yet, just to see what else they had. Got an Egyptian Queen Frazetta print from a sideshow. Oh, that's sweet. 121 of 300. That's killer. There's a new Frazetta book out, I think, isn't there? They were talking about it in Jared Osborne's. Someone was talking about it in the chat on Jared Osborne's Friday night show here. Apparently I'm pretty sure it was a Frazetta book they were talking about. Apparently the book covers. Now I'm not so sure. Maybe it was Bernie Wrightson they were talking about. Anyway, very cool. The next one, or the next two rather, not much to say about it other than they're incredible. But it's no surprise considering it's from the man himself, Sergio Aragonés. This is the 2 more issues of Louder Than Words that I talked about, I think, on Sunday there. So I'm only missing issue number 2 from this 6-issue miniseries. And like I said, it's just, you get what you pay for. Sleepy Reader, hello. You get what you pay for, and it's so goddamn entertaining. I feel like this is stuff I would love to bring to show my dad, because when I was reading Mad Magazine, Sergio was kind of one of the ones that he enjoyed as well too, with his marginals, Mad Marginals. Every single one is just a nice little gag. Oh, nice. You found some. Sweet. Did you find all 6 or just a couple of them? Can I fix that lighting? Probably not, hey? Is that showing up? Should be showing up there. Every gag is just so goddamn entertaining. His style is fantastic, and it's really amazing what he can do with this silence. I mean, that's kind of what he's known for, right? So, and then these crowd scenes are always really incredible. So this was so enjoyable, such an enjoyable read. Super quick to go through, but really top-notch stuff. So I'm really glad to almost have that whole one there. Man, oh man, I tell you, you found 1 to 3. Beautiful. That's great. So I tell you, going down this Robert E. Howard kind of winding downhill off-road dirt bike path has been pretty entertaining. There's been some duds for sure, but there's been some incredible reads, Cull being one of them for sure. I really enjoyed the Cull that I read. But I gotta say, this is an absolute standout. So I read Supernatural Thrillers featuring Valley of the Worm. This is issue number 3 from Supernatural Thrillers from 1972. 1973, the April 1973 issue. Holy shit, it's such a good story. I have a hard time pinpointing exactly what it is about this story that I enjoy so much. So we start off with our main character kind of on his deathbed and thinking about his past lives and sort of remembering / transporting himself. It's so good, and you just kind of get this rich history of this character and his people, his kind of I don't know if I guess it's 1973. His Asgardians is what you're told at the end. I think is what he ends up saying when he kind of passes on his history. But it's just, I mean, first of all, it's gorgeous looking book. Really a stunner. Did I do the proper credits? Roy Thomas and Jerry Conway, Gil Kane, Ernie Chua, if that's how you pronounce his last name. There's the proper credits there. Yeah, absolutely, Werewolf. Really nice. I'll show it again. Really nice stuff for sure. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I really tried to pinpoint exactly what it is that I love about it, because I love it in this format. I love it in the Bloodstar format. So it's the same story. Corbin adapted the same story. He did some differences to it for sure, but it's the same kind of meat. It's the same bones of the story. And it is so enjoyable in both. And I honestly, I don't have one that I prefer over the other. They both worked so well. I think it's just a real tight piece of story here. Kind of like a nice, not a twist at the end, but a nice kind of coda at the end, you know, as this guy is. That's a very good question, Werewolf by Lunchtime. I don't know. I don't know if it's the same. Damien will probably be able to tell us. But just a nice little touching bit at the end. Corbin really leans into that touching bit because he has a lot more pages to kind of work parts into the story. He works in our main character's history a lot more than they do here. They don't have the same page length, page count to deal with. So he kind of really fills in this guy's family and how his history is passed down, is through this guy that Gorm, I think is what they call him. I can't remember if it's Gorm in this one and Grom in the other one. I think it's Grom in the other one. His picked friend passes down the history to his children on his deathbed. So really great. So here's that last page there. So highly recommended. If you can find this, I wouldn't hesitate for a second to pick this sucker up. Top-notch stuff. And like I was saying on Sunday's video, I believe Bloodstar is on the slate for Dark Horse to do a reprint of. So because that Bloodstar is not the easiest to get, and as with a lot of that older Richard Corbin stuff, it can really be freaking expensive. So if you can find it, by all means, grab it. But you know, if you can find a cheap copy, give her. Kane loved doing sword and sorcery, but didn't do much because it took him longer to draw and he needed the money. Yeah, I imagine that's always kind of a balance for some of these guys, right? Like, what can I do quick so I can turn around a check, get a payday? This next one, we got a 3 Fantagraphics books back to back here. So this next one is a one shot, and it's called Ditko Kirby Wood, and it is by Sergio Poncioni, I believe is how you pronounce his name. He's a award-winning cartoonist, is what they talk about. He made his comics debut in the 1990s, contributing short stories to Italy's Maltese Narrazioni magazine that were later collected in the book Impronte Maltesi. He drew the character Jonathan Steele for Sergio Bonelli, Editore, and Star Comics, etc., etc. He won some prizes in Italy. This was a pretty solid little one-shot, basically about him as a cartoonist and a fan of his who sent him, who wants to show off some of his art to kind of get some pointers and talk to him about what he could improve, and he's trying to get into the comics game himself. So this young man is not aware of Ditko, Kirby, or Wood, so he kind of gives him a bit of a history lesson and gives him some books. So it's sort of looking at people that influenced him, I assume, but also gives him a chance to show off his chops as he kind of apes some of these artists' styles. So we start off with Steve Ditko, and again, it's not telling you. It's very, very rudimentary kind of information about these creators. He's not giving you any sort of in-depth stuff. This is a very kind of cursory look at each of these. Yeah, in order of greatness, yeah, probably. But I mean, this page I showed off on Sunday too. I think he did a phenomenal job on this page. It's gorgeous, featuring a bunch of his creations there. So stylistically gorgeous. The story itself is just okay. I think it's one of those that you don't necessarily read every single page. You just kind of soak in the incredible art, and he really does an amazing job here. And I love even the color shift when he goes kind of to focus on these artists. There's a great Kirby splash page for you there. Our double page. And then I'll just show you a little bit of the Wally Wood. The Wally Wood, he takes a little bit of a different approach. Does kind of like illustrated prose, talking about his life and kind of his last days in kind of isolation and his frustration, and even talks a little bit about getting into pornography later in his life, like drawing some kind of more adult content. It's probably the chunkiest that kind of digs in a little bit deeper on a creator. Again, still pretty a cursory look at them though. So that was a really nice, a very, very nice package, a really well done book. His name is definitely on my radar. I'll search Fantagraphics at some point to see what else he's done. So Wood has inked both Ditko and Kirby at various times, and Ditko inked Kirby a few times. Wonder if Kirby ever inked either of the others. Probably not yet. Feels like Kirby, from my limited knowledge, it feels like Kirby is a guy who would maybe not be working on someone else's art. Probably had too much of his own stuff to get out, you know. So that was Ditko Kirby Wood, DKW. One that took me by surprise. I have issue number 1, Tales from the Outer Boroughs. Talked about it, I don't even know how many months ago at this point, but I remember it being okay, that it took kind of an interesting turn. It was a little bit dark. After reading issue 2, I am 150% sold on Tales from the Outer Burrows as a book that I need to hunt for the rest of them. This was a phenomenal issue. One of the main things that I really enjoyed about it was, first of all, the storytelling itself is not necessarily the most unique, but it is it's not something I've seen too much before. The kind of back and forth between the narration and the characters and their text, or their dialogue rather, is really, really well done. It flows so smoothly. It's like the narrator sometimes finishes thoughts that some of the characters have had in a very kind of succinct and almost conversational way. Sometimes the conversation between the characters ends up in these captions. So we start off with this kid who's handicapped, and he gets bullied by the neighborhood kids, and the father looks on and just gets frustrated and imagines exacting revenge on these horrible kids. So instead of being able to communicate that, he ends up kind of lashing out at his son, calling him a pathetic cripple and things like this, and just really going off on him sometimes. And all of a sudden we get interjected this guy with, looks like he's got a belt on. It looks like he's got some sort of helmet on. We don't quite know what's going on. But as the story unfolds, we get some more on the next page too. We start to jump through time and we get this individual story. So the way he weaves the story, and I kind of don't want to talk to you about too much more because I do feel like it's a book that, if you can find, it's worth picking up just to kind of see the way the story unfolds. I thought it was pretty clever. It kept me interested throughout the whole thing. Just kind of kept you guessing from page to page. This is part 1 of, I think it's a 2-part story. I think this Outer Burrows went 4 or 6 issues. I don't know if there was a volume 2. This one is labeled volume 1, number 2. So I'm not sure how much further this went. So this is written and illustrated by Douglas Michael, is the creator's name. So good. This was a fantastic issue. One of the highlights from the week for sure. So that's Tales from the Outer Burrows from Fantagraphics. Did I say the year? The year is 1991. And then I think finally from the Fantagraphics reads, as I put this one away and have a sip. This is issue number 5 of Unsupervised Existence. I think it went 7 issues. The first 4 were magazine size, and the final, it either went 7 or 8. I have a feeling it went 7. I seem to remember it being a strange number to end on. This is kind of, again, I think it's 1991. Yeah, 1991 as well. Terry Laban is the creator's name, a name that I've heard a lot in the past. I think even on like the Kayfabe channel from Jim Rugg there. This is kind of right in that 90s autobio type of comics. This one, however, isn't boring. This is kind of an interesting story. The gist of what I'm getting is this main character has left home and has gone traveling around the world. He's making his way to Paris, I think. So he's kind of running out of money, and he's on the fence of, what am I going to do? I either try to make something happen out here, or I go crawling back to my parents to see if they can give me some money and I can get back home. So he's really at this point in his life where he's unsure of busting out on his own or kind of crawling back to his parents' house. I found it again. It was a great story. Just really, it just flowed really nicely and naturally. His internal dialogue is pretty fantastic. These struggles that kind of teenagers go through as you're becoming an adult, it seems like it's illustrated here pretty well. So this was a really fun book too. I'd love to see where else this goes. Like I said, I think it was 7 issues. So there we have it. That's Unsupervised Existence. So a few weeks ago, I had a talking about the Tundra sketchbook series. There was 11 issues of it. Russ Works in the comments said that because I've been looking for this Rick McCallum issue for the longest time, and Russ Works was saying check on eBay because he saw some there. I looked on eBay a number of times over the kind of year or so, and every time I see a copy on eBay, it's the price of the book itself isn't too bad. It's the usual for me. The shipping, it'll be like an $8 book, and the shipping will be $25 for one comic. I found a French seller. So these came, first of all, they came in about 10 days from France. I got 2 books from him. They're both kind of square bound. And it cost me, I think it was around $10 Canadian for both of the books to come from France. And they took less than 2 weeks to get here. So I've since kind of looked back at his eBay store. He's got a number of these sketchbook series books, I think 4 more. So I'm considering maybe picking those up if they're still available in a couple of weeks when I've got a couple extra bucks in my PayPal. Because I'm super impressed with this seller, and he's got a lot of good stuff. So I grabbed 2 more from the sketchbook series. This is the final issue. Tom Kidd, who did a lot of illustration and paintings for book covers and stuff, and was currently working on something. I think it was going to be for Tundra itself, is what he said. So this is from 1992. The front cover is Windsor McKay City. And he's really selling stuff in this book. It's available in a 17x24 matted lithograph, signed and numbered out of $1,060. Ordering information is at the back of the book. That comes up a number of times throughout this book, where he shows some paintings and says that there's prints available there. Does that help a little bit more? It feels like it's not really focusing on him. So this is an artist I'm not super familiar with. I loved it. I love the idea of sketchbooks. I think it's a really great series. I think the Tundra did here. It's beautiful stuff. It's not something I would normally kind of run to, but this one caught my interest out of the ones that he had. And it just felt like I should order 2 books from him if it was coming all the way from France. So I splurged. And the prices on all his comics that he was selling were pretty damn decent. So we get a lot of black and white stuff here. And then he goes to a section where it's the paintings from some books. And here's where you get the information about what it is and the reminder that prints are for sale and prices and things. Matted photo print, signed, $15. And then at the end, we get some pages from his upcoming book for Tundra called Gnemo, Gnemo. I'm not sure if it ever came out from Tundra. I'd have to look back on the my comic shop listing there. So he gives a lot of the backstory of it, and then gives some pretty fleshed out kind of sketches and things. So beautiful looking stuff either way. Like I said, it's not kind of my go-to style for art, but pretty damn good. These Tundra books are so fantastic. And then, of course, the other one was the Rick McCallum Screaming Masks, which I've been waiting for a long time. I kind of look at it online. I've looked to see if there was any copies floating around that I could download, even just to take a peek inside. Nothing exists. I've seen some stills online, but that's about it. So this is number 6 in the sketchbook series from 1991. So Rick does something pretty interesting here. So he had a huge career in mini comics, where he and Bill Anderson, who's his inker, had done a lot of mini comics previous to kind of doing some not quite mainstream work. But I guess some mainstream work. He worked on the Turtles, for God's sakes. That's pretty fucking mainstream. So this kind of is a retelling of the history, the universe that he created and the characters that he created. And it's told in this, it's kind of narrated by one of the characters. And you get some comic strips as well, too, in here. but it is an incredibly fleshed out world that he's created with rich histories of each of the characters. It feels like it's kind of adjacent to Ashley Dust, the one that from him that I absolutely adore. I think also what he says in the end was these are also characters that were in, what the heck was Horde, was that one I think that I really loved as well. Yeah, I'm not sure where he said that. He talks about where some of this stuff. So though Bill went on to bigger and better things, inking for Comico, Marvel, DC, and others, we continued to work with each other. It was during this period that Rage, Carnival, Slaughter, and others were created. Many individual stories of these characters were self-published in titles as diverse as Horde, Ultrazine, or New Wave Heroes. So Horde is the one issue that I do have. So at the back, he kind of breaks the character of the narrator and gives you a little bit of history. This is a fantastic book. It was well worth the wait. I just adore his style. I love his storytelling. I love that he uses the sketchbook format to kind of give you the history of this world that he has been creating for years and years. Him and Bill have been creating for years and years, and you get some really sweet McCullum Anderson work here. So beautiful, beautiful stuff. I'm so glad I have a copy of this now. So almost finally, I won't talk about these too much. There's one issue that I'll focus on, but I read a bunch of Turtles as usual, and thanks to this First Comics book, the color reproductions. This is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles book 2. This one covers issues 4, 5, and 6. 5 is the only one that I have a copy of in the black and white form. And then 7, 8, and 9 I've got copies of as well. So I was able to read 6 issues back to back. So this book covers kind of their first big arc, their storytelling that goes from issue 2 all the way to issue 7. I gotta say, the color didn't turn me off, but I much prefer the black and white. I'm not crazy about this era of Turtles in color. It's not that the coloring is bad. I think it's serviceable. It's just my preference is the gorgeous black and white from this crew here, which is a big draw of those early issues. Super fun arc. We get to meet the Triceratons in this as they get kind of transported to this other world. It's nice to see them exploring a big kind of story arc to kind of throw the characters in and really kind of soak up the fact that they're uber fucking popular. So let's really suck people in. They had notoriously late issues all throughout this stuff, so there was always apologies in the individual issues. So this was the final story in it, number 7 here. There's the wraparound cover, beautiful stuff. And then issue number 8 was so great to read again. This was a highlight out of all of the Turtles. This is the one that I had when I was a kid. One of the only ones. I might have had an issue or 2 more, but this is the one that I remember. This one features Cerebus in it, Dave Sim and Gerhard doing some work in this book as well too. So great. There's some things that are etched into my memory. This kind of main bad guy of the story is really etched into my memory. Such a fun issue. Yeah, as they get kind of transported, let's see the first time you see Cerebus. So we get introduced to Rennet, or Renee, our kind of time sorceress rather, who makes an appearance throughout a bunch of issues. From what I know, even ends up in Tales of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles as well. You're looking for TMNT number 7. Yeah, I mean, I've just got lucky with finding these issues. Where's the first picture of Cerebus here? Here we go. So there we go. And then drop down into the world there, or they drop down into his world. Really just a fantastic story. But it's number 9 that really blew me away. This is right up there with some of my favorite stuff that I've read so far. There was a strange thing with this one too. I had to actually cut some of the pages, about 5 of the pages. They didn't slice them, so there was a big extra piece of paper here where it was sealed. So I had to cut kind of try to cut a nice sharp corner to kind of get into the rest of the book. So fun. This book was so fun. There's a bunch of people that are on duties here. This is another one that was notoriously late because I think at the time that this was coming out, they were starting work on that first comics graphic novel. They were creating some new pages for it. Kevin was painting a cover for it. Kevin was coloring the book as well too. So a lot of the work that they were doing on issue number 9 fell by the wayside. It was going to be one that someone else was going to take over for themselves. I'm blanking on his name, who exactly it was going to be. I'm not seeing it quickly here. So in this one, we have story by Eastman and Laird, pencils by Michael Dooney. Maybe it was Michael Dooney that was supposed to do the entire issue. And then inks and tones by Eastman, Laird, Dooney, Ryan Brown, and Jim Lawson. So everybody had their hands in this one. And one of the things that stands out to me is, considering how many people had their hands in it, it's pretty consistent art-wise throughout. So the main story is this: we meet this guy who's having these dreams, these very strange dreams of what looks like a relative in his past. I just got to point this out too. They're beautiful. The way these first handful of pages are paneled, I think, are just wonderfully done. This was, yeah, I mean, even Werewolf is saying the same thing. Number 9 is a great issue. I mean, look at this page here. I love those long, narrow panels. I think they work beautifully. Like, look at the work done on Splinter here in this profile. Like, it's gorgeous shit, man. And I just feel that sometimes with the coloring, new or old, it really depends, right? Especially for this older stuff, I do find that the coloring sometimes takes away from just the beautiful work they were doing in black and white. So Splinter gets reached out to psychically by this old man who's on his deathbed, trying to reach out to his relatives so he can pass on his powers to one of his ancestors. So he wants him to find his grandson. His son is the kind of leader of a crime ring, and his son is trying to influence the grandson to take over that world, and the grandfather wants him to be steered away from that and kind of go back to a place of honor for the family and honor the family and their legacy. So him and Splinter kind of switch bodies, I guess. So goddamn good. Oh, Daryl D. Sorry. Yes, I'm in issue 9. Daryl made the comment. Sorry. Yes. Hello, Daryl. How are you? Nice to see you. Sorry, I wasn't reading the names closely enough, obviously. I love this issue. I love this kind of storytelling. I love this kind of world. I think it was handled really nicely. It's just an amazing one-shot, especially coming out of this traveling through time and traveling to other planets. It's a real nice contrast to those kind of more cosmic and time travel stories. This was an absolute stunner of an issue. So highly recommended from the run. Obviously, get everything if you can, but if you see this one, I wouldn't hesitate for a second to pick up issue number 9. Just as good a place to start as any. So that's for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So finally tonight, we're going to look at... Yeah, there you go, Werewolf. Your name's Darren, so close, very close. Darren, Daryl, Larry, Daryl, and Daryl. Finally tonight, we're going to look at Night of the Living Dead. We're going to look at it digitally because I found it digitally. So I had the Night of the Living Dead prelude that I showed off with Carlos Castro on art. So I'm going to share the screen. Hopefully you're seeing this. I'm away from our window, so if you do chat, I can't see what you're saying. Carlos Castro did the prelude to the first series that came out in 1991. That was 4 issues. This is a 2-issue. After the 4 issues, there was a one shot, I think, called Aftermath, and then it went to these 2 issues called London was the subtitle. All of the art in all of those issues is done by Carlos Castro. I don't believe he went and did anything else with this series. He went off to do some other things, and I'll show you that once we stop the screen share on this. Yeah, I've got the book here. This is something else. Like, again, this is the kind of stuff that keeps me digging through the bins here. Well, whoops. This is the kind of stuff that keeps me digging through the cheap bins, because you end up finding some absolute gold. Carlos Castro is a phenomenal artist for this kind of stuff. Every single page is beautiful, and I'll show you some stuff later on. So it's Night of the Living Dead. It's not much of a surprise. It's zombies. They've taken over the world. The twist with these 2 issues is, pardon me, we end up in England, and we're focused on the royal family, who is kind of at the point in their time now where they want to figure out how to continue their legacy and continue their bloodline amidst all this horrors that are happening. The story is kind of told from the perspective of the bishop, whose pastime is to go off into the city streets filled with zombies with his driver to look for any survivors, specifically young boys, that he can rescue and bring back to imprison them and have sex with them and whatever debaucherous things that come to him. Some of the passages in here, some of the panels, I'll try to find some, but I mean, just look at this. Look at this stuff. It's just wild. All of this stuff is fantastic on its own. And again, like, this is a book that would be ruined by coloring it. Absolutely ruined by coloring it. But what ends up happening with some of this stuff here, we get things like this. There's a couple of shots. I don't know if I'll be able to find them easily. There's a couple of shots of kind of the royal family out and again, like, trying to kind of live life within their kind of caged existence, as if it were normal. So they're marrying off the son. They found someone that they're going to marry him off to, and they're having the ceremony like nothing's happening, and they roll through the streets. And a lot of times the zombies are portrayed, there's times they look like Holocaust survivors, actually, like Holocaust, not survivors, people in prison camps, in death camps, I guess, is maybe a better word for it. It's an amazing contrast with this story, focusing on the royalty and how kind of detached they are from the reality of what's going on out there, or just kind of in denial of that reality to some degree, or coping, or I don't even know how to describe it. Let's see if we can find the page of the ceremony itself. I was blown away, page after page. I was blown away. The story was pretty good. I felt like it could go a little further. I felt like, again, like with my satire, and if you want to be really kind of hard hitting, I like the Rick Veitch approach to it, or the Auteur comic, which I can't remember that creator's name. Go full on, like, really play up the absurdity and the ridiculousness and the everything about it. Just really show that stuff off. Here you go. This is the page that I was talking about. I mean, this is incredible. It looks like he's mixing in some photos that he's manipulated in the background, potentially photos in the foreground here too, of the soldiers on the horses and the carriage and things. And then just littered about is all of this, just the streets filled with zombies, filled with the Walking Dead. Unbelievable double page there. If there was ever a page to own, this would be it. Stunning book. I really want to find the rest of the series. I really want to find these actual copies. I've put the word out locally here with the local comic addicts, with no luck so far. There's one guy who's got the original 4 issues, but he said, I'm just not willing to sell it. He has a couple of issues of the couple of copies of the Prelude, but I've already got that one. So the hunt remains. Yeah, Werewolf, it really is. It's amazing, amazing stuff. I'm very, very curious to see how they tell. I think the first 4 issues are more of along the lines of like a straight adaptation of Night of the Living Dead, from what I understand. The Prelude kind of just talks about the moment before, what would be the moments before the movie itself. So I'm very curious to see what they do, and then what that aftermath single issue is. Yeah. Looks like the corner of Regent Street and Oxford Street. Okay, nothing much has changed. Yeah, still the Walking Dead on the corners there. So a real stunner. The other kind of stunner of the week, I posted some photos on Twitter as well to kind of some interest from a few people. And again, I think Colin had said it's an artist he never heard of, myself included, had no idea. So when I started looking him up to see what else he's done, I found that I have one other thing by him. There's this Daughters of Fly in My Eye. There was also Fly in My Eye as well. I think a couple of issues by that were put out by Eclipse. This one I've had on the shelf for quite a while. It's also got some, I think it's got some Matt Howarth in this as well too, or maybe that's the other one. But Castro does a piece in here too, so we'll have a quick look. I haven't read this one, so I don't know what it's about. Where is he? My memory of Fly in My Eye was that it was not quite there as a horror anthology. I picked it up just because, yeah, here we go. There is some Matt Howarth in here. I picked it up because, you know, being the Eclipse completist, and I think that's why I haven't really dug into it, because my memory of Fly in My Eye from being a teenager was that it's not the greatest. So sometimes I've seen Castro spelt with a K, and sometimes I've seen his last name spelt with a C. So there's Carlos Castro here, and this is called the Cockroach Waltz. Still that beautiful black and white style. I like that the Night of the Living Dead stuff is a little darker though. It feels like and drawing creatures seems to be his forte. He draws a perfectly fine human being. There's nothing wrong with his art style whatsoever, but I love that kind of mix of these corpses, these walking corpses. This one doesn't have quite that same impact, although there is pages like this that look pretty great. So that's pretty awesome as he's firebombing some cockroaches that are gigantic, I think, and sitting, yeah, gigantic and sitting at his table and just kind of hanging out in his apartment. Here we go. See him there overrun with some cockroaches. So still nice looking stuff. I prefer the Night of the Living Dead stuff quite a bit more, to be honest, but it's nice to see some other stuff by him. I think that's it. Thanks very much for hanging out on Friday, those of you who could make it. So we won't be around on Sunday. No chat with Rasa on Sunday. No Sunday wrap. Like I said, I'm not sure if we're going to be back the following weekend, because that'll be Mother's Day for us here. So we might be on like a 2-week hiatus, but 1 week for sure. So we'll keep in touch. And thanks for hanging out, everybody. Good to see you all. All right, later.